All right, settle in. Let's get this started. I'm Ghost.
And I'm Spectre. Welcome.
Now look, if you're here because you just spent months of your life grinding, banging your head against the wall, and you finally passed your OSCP, first off, seriously, congratulations. That is a hell of a thing.
No doubt. It proves you've got grit. It proves you can follow a playbook.
But let's be absolutely clear right from the jump, it also proves you've learned the rules to a game that we are not here to play.
That's the truth. For those who don't know, the OSCP is this brutal 24-hour exam where you're thrown into a network and told to hack everything you can. It's the gold standard for proving you have real pen testing skills. But here's the problem. It teaches you to be loud. It teaches you to find a hole, pop a shell, grab a screenshot, and move on. In our world, that approach gets you caught, or a hell of a lot worse.
We're here to take that foundation you've built, tear it down to the studs, and rebuild you into something different, something quieter, more patient, more damn lethal. See, we used to be on the other side of the fence. We know exactly what it's like when getting caught doesn't just mean a failed report. It means your whole life changes in a flash. We got convinced, recruited, and now we're going to teach you how the game is actually played at the levels they don't talk about in textbooks. So grab your coffee, kill your notifications, and listen up. I really need you to let this sink in. Burn this quote into the back of your skull. That whole certification mindset, the bug bounty mindset, it's all about finding a flaw, popping a box, and then running to the top of the mountain to scream, "Hey, look what I did, pay me." For a real operator, that is a catastrophic, mission-ending failure. Our success is measured in absolute silence, total invisibility. The objective is never, ever, ever just to get a shell. A shell is a tool. It's a key to a door. That's it. The real objective is strategic. Is it to quietly siphon off research data over the next 3 years? Is it to get in the ability to silently alter financial records at one specific moment 6 months from now? If the target ever even suspects that a door was unlocked, you have already failed. We are talking about a complete and total paradigm shift. You have to stop being a technician who finds bugs. You need to become a strategist who dictates outcomes. You have to stop being a hacker and become a ghost. All right, here's our battle plan. This is the roadmap for your transformation from pen tester to operator. First, and honestly, it's the most important part of this entire course, we're going to hammer on the operator's mindset. If you don't get this, if this doesn't fundamentally rewire your brain, then the rest of this is just a collection of cool party tricks that'll get you busted. After that, we dive into the 5 phases of a real operation. Phase 1 is the digital stalker. This is where we become obsessive intelligence gatherers. This is where wars are won before you ever touch the target. Phase 2, the lockpick. That's our entry. We're not talking about noisy, off-the-shelf exploits. We're talking about finding one single surgical way in. From there, it's Phase 3, the invisible man. This is the real art form, staying hidden. We'll build command and control channels that literally disappear into the network's background noise. Then, Phase 4, the insider. We're in, so now what? We'll show you how to move through a network like you belong there, because by that point, you will. And finally, Phase 5, the ghost. Getting the goods out, cleaning up every trace, and maybe, just maybe, leaving a secret welcome mat for yourself on the way out. This is the whole damn life cycle. This is where the real fun begins. Okay, let's rip this Band-Aid off. The biggest, most fundamental mistake I see every single time a talented pen tester tries to make the jump to real red teaming is their obsession with tools. They're constantly chasing the newest, hottest thing on GitHub, the latest zero-day proof of concept on Twitter, the shiniest new C2 framework. They think the tool is the skill. Let me be perfectly blunt. I don't give a damn if you use a bleeding-edge exploit kit or a sharp rock you found on the ground. The tool is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is the philosophy, the mindset. Are you thinking about the mission, or are you just thinking about the vulnerability? See, a pen tester finds a vulnerability and asks, how can I pop this? An operator starts with the mission objective and asks a totally different question. What is the quietest, most reliable path to achieve my goal? And what vulnerabilities, technical or human, can I leverage along that path? It is a complete inversion of the entire process. Look at this slide. Burn it into your memory, because this right here is everything. The crazy part is how a career-making success for a pen tester is a fireable, catastrophic failure for us. I remember one of my first private gigs after I switched teams. It was a major bank. They said they wanted a full red team, but what they meant was they wanted a pen test. They gave us a 2-week timeline. After the jobs I'd been on, I just laughed. I told the guy, look, give me 2 weeks and I'll give you a pen test report. Give me 6 months and I'll give you your bank. A pen tester's trophy is a 50-page report full of critical findings. For us, a single log entry, a single alert that gets traced back to our activity means we have failed. Our success metric isn't a low detection rate, it's zero detection. And the timelines? A pen test is a sprint. An operation is a marathon run by ghosts. We'll spend a year just mapping a target, learning their business, their people, their internal politics, all before we send a single damn packet. A pen tester is a rock concert in a server room. An operator is the subtle change in air pressure that tells you a door opened 3 floors down. We have to be the normal traffic. Your greatest success is our absolute failure. All right, let's get into the work. Phase 1, the digital stalker, reconnaissance. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. 90% of every successful operation I've ever been on was one right here. Before a single exploit was launched, before a single phishing email was written, the intelligence you gather now defines your entire playbook later. I was on an op once targeting this high-security research lab. I mean, the network was an absolute fortress. We couldn't find a crack anywhere. But we spent weeks just doing passive recon, just watching. And we saw that one of the lead engineers was a massive, obsessive baseball fan. His home Wi-Fi, his social media, his forum posts, everything screamed baseball. The entry vector wasn't some fancy zero-day. It was a cheap USB drive we loaded our payload onto, stuck a label on it that said MLB Draft Prospects 2024, and dropped it in the parking lot near his car. He plugged that thing in before he even sat down at his desk. Game over. That's why this phase is everything. So pay close attention, because this is where the real operators are made. So this is where we start building our masterpiece of paranoia. We become, for all intents and purposes, digital stalkers. And we use small, cheap, disposable tools, like the stuff you can flash onto a device running the evil M5 project firmware, because we can drop them in a coffee shop and just walk away. When we're sniffing probes, we're not just looking for Wi-Fi names. We're building a social graph. We sit there and we see a target's phone screaming for corporate Wi-Fi, then home sweet home, and then toddlers play place guest. Well, now we know where they work, we know their home network, and we know where they take their kid on Saturday mornings. We're war driving to physically map where these networks live. We're using a wall of flipper to see what other Bluetooth gadgets our targets are carrying around. You would not believe how many C-level execs have tile trackers on their keychains. It's just hilarious. Every single tiny piece of data goes into the file. We are building a pattern of life so detailed that we know when they get their morning coffee and what they order, all without ever laying eyes on them. It is creepy as hell, and it is devastatingly effective. Okay, time for a technical deep dive. Let's talk about 802.11 probe requests, because this right here is the absolute fire hose of free intelligence in our world. Your phone, your laptop, every device you own with Wi-Fi is constantly, and I mean constantly, shouting into the void. It's broadcasting these little management frames, and a lot of them are directed probes, which are just your device asking, hey, is my home network here? Hey, is my work network here? The critical piece, the part that gives us the keys to the kingdom, is that these tiny frames contain two beautiful things: the device's unique MAC address and the name, the SSID of the network it's looking for. You can just sit there a block away in a car with a completely passive listening device and drink it all in. You don't send a single packet. You are totally invisible. After a few days, you've collected thousands of these things. You see a specific MAC address at the corporate headquarters from 9 to 5. Then you see that exact same MAC address in a residential neighborhood from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. probing for Smith_family Wi-Fi. You now know where your target lives and the name of their home network. This is the digital equivalent of digging through someone's trash, except it's 100 times more effective and you never have to leave your car. All right, time for a war story. We had an objective: get the inside details on a hostile corporate takeover. The target company was locked down tighter than a drum, but the CFO, he was our key. We couldn't get anywhere near their corporate network, so we went after him, personally. We put an operator in the lobby coffee shop of their headquarters building with a tiny little device just sniffing Wi-Fi probes. For a solid week, that's all he did: drank overpriced lattes and cataloged signals. And sure enough, the CFO's phone is just a geyser of intelligence. It's probing for the corporate network, his home network, and then we see it. A little gem, CFO_private_Wi-Fi. Well, that's interesting. For the next 3 weeks, that SSID became our North Star. We just followed it. We saw it pop up at his house, at the office, and then one Tuesday afternoon, it appears for 3 hours at a boutique hotel across town. That's not normal. That's a break in the pattern. So we look up the hotel's public meeting schedule, and what do you know? A holding company we knew was a front for the competitor had a conference room booked for Project Nightingale. The dumbass led us right to the secret merger negotiation. We knew the terms of the deal before his own board did. His phone snitched on him the whole time, and he never had a damn clue. And this, right here, brings us to the NSA/elite take. A pen tester runs an Nmap scan, sees port 443 is open, and writes in the report, "Found web server." That's not reconnaissance, that's just looking.
An operator takes their time. We spend a month, maybe more, building a complete dossier. We're not just finding their public IP address, we're using those probe requests to see their home network is named Fido's Funhouse 5G. Now we know his dog's name is probably Fido. Why the hell does that matter? Because now we have a potential answer for a password reset question. We have a detail we can weave into a phishing email that makes it feel deeply personal and legitimate. We pull public property records for his address to see what he paid for his house. We scrape his LinkedIn for his work history. We find his wife's Instagram and see they just got back from a vacation in Aruba. We combine all of this. The goal of Operator Recon isn't to find an open port. The goal is to know the target so intimately that you can predict their behavior. You know them better than they know themselves. That's how you get in.
All right, let's roll into phase 2, the lockpick. This is the part everyone thinks hacking is, the exploit. But we are not kicking in the door. We aren't even using a crowbar. See, a pen tester uses a sledgehammer. They run a scanner, find some known CVE, and fire off a Metasploit module. It's loud, it's messy, and it works. Until it doesn't. We are lockpicks. We look for one single, quiet, strategic entry point. For example, instead of hammering a web server, maybe we use a password we captured to log into the HR portal. Download a benign-looking benefits PDF, embed our payload deep inside its metadata, and then send it back to our target from a spoofed internal HR email address. The goal isn't just to get in. The goal is to get in, deliver our package, and melt away, all while looking like a perfectly normal business process. So let's talk about how to be a lockpick, not a sledgehammer.
So let's walk through a core concept here, the evil twin attack. When this is done right, it's a work of art. Looking at the steps on the slide, it's just a beautiful, elegant workflow. First, from our recon, we know our target's laptop trusts corporate_guest_Wi-Fi. So step 1, clone and details, we create a perfect replica of that access point. Same SSID, same vendor MAC address, everything. Step 2, evil twin, we start broadcasting it, and we usually boost the signal so our fake AP appears stronger than the real one. Now here's the magic. Step 3, deauthor. We send a special disassociation packet that forcibly boots our target off the legitimate Wi-Fi. Their laptop, being helpful, immediately scans for a network to rejoin. It sees our stronger twin with the same name and connects right up. Now they're on our network, passing traffic through us. That's when we hit them with Step 4, captive portal. A login page that looks absolutely identical to the real one pops up in their browser saying something like, "Your network session has expired. Please re-authenticate." The psychology here is perfect. They were just working, they got kicked off, they see a familiar page, they don't think twice, they just type. And Step 5, check credential, we get their username and password in glorious plain text. It's just beautiful.
Okay, time for another technical deep dive on a really nasty evolution of this, the karma attack. This one's even more fun because it can work with zero user interaction. See, some devices, especially older ones or just phones that are badly configured, will send out broadcast probe requests that basically scream, "Is any network I've ever trusted nearby?" An attacker running a karma attack just listens for this desperate plea. Your phone shouts out, "Is free airport Wi-Fi out there?" And our attacking device instantly spins up an access point with that exact name and says, "Yep, I'm free airport Wi-Fi, connect to me." Your phone, because it trusts that name, automatically connects. No captive portal, no login page. The user doesn't have to do a single thing. I know a guy who set one of these up at a major tech conference. He collected hundreds of connections in an hour from people whose phones were still trying to connect to the open Wi-Fi from the hotel they stayed at 6 months ago. People are lazy and never clean out their preferred networks list. This attack weaponizes that laziness at the protocol level. When it works, man, it's a beautiful thing to watch. And that brings me to a war story that I will cherish for the rest of my damn life. We were on a physical engagement, and we were targeting this one specific sysadmin who, frankly, should have known a lot better. We're sitting in a van across the street from his office building, and we clone the Starbucks Wi-Fi from the coffee shop in their lobby. We run the whole evil twin playbook. We de-auth his laptop, the automatically reconnects to our stronger signal, and our fake captive portal pops up. A few seconds later, the credential capture alert fires on our screen. And the password the senior systems administrator for a Fortune 500 company entered was, and I am not making this up, "Fuck you, Janet 69. The entire van just lost it. We were crying, we were laughing so hard. Then, just for the hell of it, we take his corporate email address and we try that password on their external VPN gateway. The connection hangs for a second, and then, boom, we get a connection prompt. We're in. A little bit of digging later, and it turns out he used that exact same password for his privileged domain admin account. We went from zero access to owning their entire global Active Directory in less than 5 minutes. All because this poor bastard was clearly going through a very, very messy divorce. It proves the #1 rule. People are the vulnerability. Every single damn time. So this right here is the NSA/elite take on this whole thing. For a pen tester, getting that password, fuck you Janet 69, is the end of the road. That's the trophy. They take a screenshot, write it up in the report, high-five each other, and they're done. For an operator, that password was just a disposable key used to open one door one time. The credentials were never ever the prize. The real prize is persistent, stealthy access. We would use that VPN access for one single purpose, to drop a custom, heavily obfuscated, stealthy implant onto his machine. The second that implant calls home to our C2 server and we have a stable channel, we tear down the evil twin. We disconnect from the VPN, and we never use that password again. We let the vulnerability live. We don't care about reporting it. The password was just the delivery mechanism for our actual weapon. A pen tester wants to prove the lock is weak. An operator uses that weak lock to move all their own furniture into the house and become a permanent, invisible resident. And that implant you just dropped brings us to Phase 3, the Invisible Man, Command and Control, or C2. You see, getting in is the easy part. Anybody can do that. Staying in, undetected, for months or even years, while some of the world's best defenders are actively hunting for you, that is an art form. This is where amateurs get caught 99% of the time. They use noisy C2 channels that stick out on the network like a blinking neon sign. Your C2 traffic has to be a ghost. It needs to be so perfectly blended with the target's normal, everyday network traffic that it becomes statistically invisible. For instance, instead of a constant beacon over HTTPS every 60 seconds, maybe you build a C2 channel that only sends data out through DNS TXT record queries, something that security analysts almost never look at closely. So let's talk about how to actually become a ghost in the machine. Okay, time for a technical deep dive on the most fundamental choice in C2, bind versus reverse shells. A bind shell is what you learn in Hacking 101. Your implant on the victim's machine opens up a port, let's say port 4444, and it just sits there, listening. You, the attacker, then have to connect inbound from the internet to that open port. This is amateur hour. Any corporate firewall worth a damn is configured to block all unsolicited inbound connections. That's called ingress filtering, and it will kill a bind shell before it ever gets started. A professional always uses a reverse shell. Our implant on the target machine initiates an outbound connection to our C2 server sitting out on the internet. Why? Because corporate networks are built to let traffic out. They have to, otherwise employees couldn't browse the web, get email, or do their jobs. So our C2 traffic, disguised as normal encrypted web traffic over port 443, just slides right past the firewall along with everyone else's. It's all about making the compromised machine call home to us. It's a fundamental change in direction that makes all the difference in staying hidden. Here's a war story that should make the hair on your neck stand up. We had this absolutely beautiful piece of malware deployed deep inside a major financial network. It was stable, it was quiet, it was perfect. Our C2 was configured to beacon out over encrypted HTTPS, checking for new tasks every 60 seconds on the dot. It was clean, efficient, and it worked flawlessly for months. Then one morning, one of our early warning systems, another asset we had, trips an alarm. The blue team had just deployed a brand new AI-based network analysis platform. Now, it hadn't flagged our traffic as malicious, but it had flagged it as anomalous. Its algorithms had spotted a machine making a perfectly rhythmic, metronomic connection every 60.00 seconds, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Humans don't do that. Machines do. It was a massive oh shit moment for the entire team. We had to scramble to rework the implant on the fly, changing the beacon to a randomized interval with jitter, so it would sleep for anywhere between, say, 45 to 120 seconds. We added logic so it would only beacon during that office's normal business hours. We made it look messy and human. The lesson from that scare is simple. Predictability is death. Patterns will get you caught every single time. And this right here brings us to the NSA/elite take. A pen tester spins up a default Cobalt Strike Team server. The problem is, the defenders, the blue teams, they have signatures for those default profiles. They can spot that traffic a mile away. It's just sleazy. An operator builds custom C2 channels, and we often abuse protocols that are absolutely essential for business and are therefore never blocked or inspected too closely. We will exfiltrate data by encoding it into a series of DNS-A record lookups to a domain we control. We will hide our commands in the optional data field of ICMP ping packets. We find the dustiest, oldest, most overlooked protocol that's allowed to talk to the internet, and we build a home there. The goal isn't just to keep your shell active for a 2-week pen test. The goal is to build a communications channel that can survive for 5 years through multiple blue team staff changes and security technology refreshes. For a pen tester, C2 is a convenience. For an operator, the C2 infrastructure is the operation.
It's our lifeline. It has to be perfect. Okay, on to phase 4, the insider. You've got your implant, your C2 is stable, it's quiet. You are officially inside the wire. Now, for a pen tester, this is when the race starts. They go as loud and as fast as they possibly can to get domain admin. For us, this is when we become even quieter. This is the time for extreme, almost painful patience. You are an insider now, and you have to start acting like one. That means you don't run a full port scan of the entire network on your first day. A real employee would never do that, and it's a giant red flag. Instead, you might spend a week just slowly, gently enumerating the file shares that your compromised user already has access to. You blend in. The real work is just beginning, so let's talk about how to truly be an insider. All right, let's get into a technical deep dive on a classic and still devastatingly effective internal network attack, LLMNR/NBTNS poisoning, usually done with a tool like Responder. Here's exactly why this works so well. Inside a Windows network, if a user tries to access a file share, let's say //fileserver1, but they make a typo and type //fileserver_typo, DNS is going to fail. It won't find a record for that server. Now, because Windows is what I like to call annoyingly helpful, it falls back to these old legacy name resolution protocols, LLMNR and NBTNS. It basically broadcasts a message to the entire local network segment, shouting, "Hey, does anyone here know where //fileserver_typo is?" Your implant, sitting quietly on that same network, immediately raises its hand and says, "Yep, that's me. I'm that server. You should authenticate to me." The victim's computer, being a trusting fool, helpfully sends you its user's NTLMv2 password hash to prove its identity. Now you have a hash that you can either crack offline or, even better, relay to another machine to authenticate as that user. It's an absolute goldmine because these ancient protocols are still enabled by default almost everywhere, and nobody ever thinks to turn them off. And this leads directly to the NSA/elite take on lateral movement. A pen tester gets a foothold, and the very first thing they do is run Bloodhound to map out the entire Active Directory domain. They find the shortest path to domain admin, and they start moving, lighting up the network like a damn Christmas tree. It's a smash and grab. An operator moves differently. We practice what's called living off the land, or LOTL. We only use the utilities and tools that are already present on the systems, the same tools that real sysadmins use every single day. We use PowerShell, we use WMI, we use scheduled tasks. Our movement needs to be completely indistinguishable from normal everyday administrative activity. And here is the most critical distinction: domain admin is not always the goal. In fact, it's usually not. If our mission is to steal the blueprints off a single engineer's workstation, we will move surgically to that one machine and that one machine only. Getting DA is often loud, risky, and totally unnecessary. It puts you on the radar of the most skilled defenders in the entire company. We are surgeons, not sledgehammers. The pen tester wants the keys to the whole kingdom. The operator just wants the one specific jewel they were sent in to steal. And that brings us to the final act, phase 5, the ghost. You've moved laterally. You've reached your objective. You have the data. Now, you have to get it out and cover your tracks. This is, without a doubt, the most dangerous part of the entire operation. Exfiltration is where so many crews get caught. They get greedy or lazy. They try to pull 100 gigabytes of data out over a single connection, and then they wonder why every alarm bell in the security operations center starts screaming. I saw a really good team get burned once because their exfil script zipped up the data on the target server, which temporarily maxed out the CPU and triggered a high-performance alert. One tiny, stupid mistake at the very end cost them months of work. This phase is all about a controlled, stealthy, and patient exit. So let's talk about how to be a ghost. And this brings us to the final and most important NSA/elite take. It's the absolute core conflict of our profession, the operator's dilemma. A pen tester's job is simple. They revert their changes and they leave. But we have two completely contradictory missions. Mission 1 is to be a ghost. We have to go back and surgically remove every single forensic artifact of our presence. And I don't mean just clearing the entire security event log. That's a massive red flag in itself. I mean we go in and we remove the specific event IDs associated with our logins. We use timestamping to alter the modification timestamps of any files we touched. We make it look like we were never there.
Right.
But at the exact same time, we have mission 2, be a parasite. The primary objective might be complete, but we almost always want to leave behind a deep, persistent backdoor for future tasking. And a backdoor is, by its very definition, a forensic artifact. So how the hell do you do both? This is the art.
We don't leave an obvious backdoor service running. Instead, we might modify the firmware of a network card to include a magic packet listener that opens a port only when it receives a specific signal. We might find a rarely used, legitimate-looking scheduled task that only runs once a month and add a single, obfuscated line of PowerShell to it that acts as our new C2 trigger. We meticulously clean up all the tracks from our initial entry, but we always leave our eggs behind to hatch later, erasing the evidence of the break-in while embedding ourselves into the very fabric of the network. Mastering this dilemma, this is the endgame.
So that's it. That's the curriculum. The 5 phases, from stalking your target like a creep to becoming a ghost in their network. You've seen that at every single stage, the operator's mindset is about patience, stealth, and having a laser focus on the mission, not just the exploit. My final piece of advice to you is this: learn to love the planning. Learn to love the silence. The most exciting part of an operation shouldn't be the moment you get a shell. It should be the months of quiet, patient work that made that shell absolutely inevitable.
He's right. All the techniques and tools we talked about today, they're just that, they're tools. The real lesson here is the philosophy behind them. It's about learning to think in timelines of years, not 2-week pen tests. It's about valuing silence over noise. So look at the question on the screen. Are you happy being a technician who finds bugs and writes reports? And hey, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good living. But if you want something more, if you want to be the person who operates in the shadows and silently achieves the mission, no matter what it takes, then you know what you need to do. Go out there and be an operator, not just a technician. Now get to work.